A major housing law just took effect without the president signing it, and that unusual detail may be the least important part for your wallet. The bigger question is whether it can lower the cost of buying, renting, repairing, or building a home, and whether the people under the most pressure will actually feel the difference. Some provisions could help ordinary households over time, while others mainly improve the system behind the scenes. The mistake would be expecting housing costs to suddenly fall. The law is called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, and it passed Congress with overwhelming support from both parties. President Trump did not sign it because he wanted Congress to first pass a separate election bill requiring proof of citizenship to register and photo identification to vote. He also did not veto the housing measure, so after the constitutional review period expired, it became law automatically. Now, both parties agree the housing system is failing, even if they explain the problem differently. Democrats called this the largest federal housing package in decades, while Republicans emphasized reducing barriers, expanding supply, and making it easier to build. For ordinary people, the pressure is easy to see. A household earning about $75,000 can afford fewer than 1/4 of the homes currently listed for sale. Around 43 million Americans spend more than 30% of their income on housing, and roughly 12 million renters spend more than half. And the law is built around one central idea: America needs more homes. Estimates of a shortage range from roughly 1 million to 6 million. Restrictive zoning, slow permits, labor shortages, high construction costs, environmental reviews, and mortgage rates near 6.5% have all made the gap worse. Congress cannot control every factor, so the law focuses on areas where federal policy can help. One of the clearest potential benefits involves manufactured housing. Federal rules dating back decades required these homes to include a permanent steel chassis for transportation, even though most are placed on a foundation and never moved again. Removing that requirement could lower production costs by an estimated $5,000 to $10,000 per home and allow designs that look more like traditional houses. That does not guarantee every buyer will save the full amount. Builders may keep part of the savings, while local fees or financing costs could offset some of it. Still, lower production costs make it easier to build homes at prices traditional construction often cannot reach. Modular construction may help for a similar reason. Large sections of a home can be assembled in a factory and installed on site, reducing delays and waste. The law directs federal housing officials to examine building codes and financing rules that may be slowing this type of construction. First-time buyers may also benefit from limits placed on large corporate landlords. Companies that own at least 350 single-family homes face restrictions on buying more existing houses. The goal is to reduce situations where a family using a mortgage loses to an investor making a fast, all-cash offer, especially in communities where institutional ownership is concentrated. But the nationwide effect may be smaller than some people expect. Large investors own only a limited share of the overall market, although their presence can be much higher in certain cities. The final law also allows companies to keep developing new rental communities, a compromise meant to reduce competition for existing homes without discouraging new construction. Renters using housing choice vouchers, often called Section 8, could see another benefit. Some landlords avoid the program because inspections can delay move-ins and leave apartments vacant. The new law allows certain recent inspections from other federal programs to count, reducing duplicate paperwork. If more landlords accept vouchers, renters may have more choices, though participation will still vary by area. Homeowners trying to remain in their current homes may get help through repair programs. The law authorizes whole home repair grants and forgivable loans that local governments can use for major problems such as roofs, plumbing, or electrical systems. It also updates government-backed improvement loans and expands financing for accessory dwelling units. Those smaller units, often called backyard cottages or in-law apartments, can provide rental income, house an aging parent, or give an adult child a more affordable place to live. For a retiree with limited income, one small rental unit could make it easier to maintain the main home. rural communities and smaller towns may benefit through added support for community banks. Large lenders do not always finance small developments or lower balance mortgages because the profit is thinner. Community banks are often more willing to fund a local builder, modest apartment project, or small subdivision. Giving them more flexibility could help projects too small to attract major investors. Small dollar mortgages are another important part of the law. A person buying an inexpensive home may be qualified, yet still struggle to find a lender because a small loan creates almost as much paperwork as a large one while producing less revenue. Expanding access could help lower-income buyers in rural areas and older cities where affordable homes exist, but financing is difficult. This may be especially meaningful for single women, single mothers, and Black borrowers. Single women buy homes at high rates, and Black women have become the largest group among single female buyers. Yet single women are more likely to be denied mortgages, while Black applicants face denial rates roughly twice those of white applicants. Lower incomes and student debt can make the process even harder. Now, the law does not erase those gaps or guarantee approval. Still, stronger community lenders, more small mortgages, repair assistance, and added attention to underserved areas could help people often overlooked because their loan is smaller or their neighborhood is considered less profitable. Local governments may ultimately decide whether much of this works. Washington can offer incentives, but cities and counties still control zoning and permitting. The law gives communities more flexibility to use federal development funds for housing and rewards places that allow denser construction or faster approvals. This is also where progress may stall. A city can receive incentives and still move slowly. Neighborhood opposition can delay apartments, townhomes, and accessory units, while builders may reject projects because of interest rates, labor, insurance, or material costs. The law changes the conditions, but it cannot force every part of the system to respond. Also, the poorest renters are less likely to feel immediate relief. The law does not include a major expansion of rental assistance, public housing, or homelessness programs. Housing advocates warn that more supply alone may not reach families who cannot afford market rent. For those households, this may be a useful first step, but not a complete solution. And timing matters too. A new housing development can take years from planning to opening. Manufactured housing reforms, repair grants, and financing changes still require federal rules, local participation, and private investment. The Department of Housing and Urban Development has also lost a substantial share of its workforce since late 2024, which could slow implementation. So the strongest benefit may not be an immediate drop in your rent or home price. It may be that outdated rules are finally being changed, while states, cities, builders, lenders, and homeowners receive more ways to add housing. Buyers should watch for manufactured homes, modular construction, and small mortgage options. Renters should watch for greater voucher participation, while homeowners should look for repair help and financing for extra units. So this law could help several groups, but in different ways and on different timelines. First-time buyers may face less investor competition. Lower-income borrowers may gain financing choices. Renters may see more landlords accepting vouchers, and homeowners may get better access to repairs or extra units. Though, no single law can quickly fix a shortage that took years to build. The real test is whether these reforms turn into actual homes that ordinary people can afford.